Republicans already dragged James Comey into congressional hearings to talk about the lack of indictment of Hillary Clinton. Wow, that was fast. So apparently, it turns out if Republicans want to do something, they can do it. They're sitting around doing absolutely nothing in Congress, but when there's a Democrat to investigate, they're on it. They do it in a split second. Now, was it fair to bring him in? I think so, because he said that Hillary Clinton did a lot of things wrong and then said, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So it's fair to ask questions. So what did Comey say today? He said, my conclusion was and remains that no reasonable prosecutor would bring the second case in 100 years for gross negligence. So he's saying, look, this was gross negligence, but it's almost never prosecuted, and no reasonable prosecutor would have done it. Now, you could disagree with him on that, and we showed you a case a couple of days ago where this FBI prosecuted someone else on criminal charges when they couldn't show intent. But it is true that it happens rarely. So he makes that point. Then he says, I see evidence of great carelessness, but I do not see evidence that is sufficient to establish Secretary Clinton or those with whom she was corresponding both talked about classified information on email and knew when they were doing it that it was against the law. So there he's saying you had to show intent, that they knew what they were doing was wrong, but they did it anyway. Again, it's an arguable point, but he has decided that it is not enough to indict. So he then pointed out the difference between the General Petraeus case and Hillary Clinton's case. Now, General Petraeus had shared classified information, but he'd done it with the person who was writing a book about him, who also happened to be his mistress. He said in the Petraeus case, the former general acknowledged on tape that material he was handing over to Paula Broadwell was highly classified. He also hid some of the material in the installation of his attic and then lied about it during the course of the investigation. And here I really think he has a very good point to make. He's saying, look, Petraeus, see, he had intent. He knew it because he was hiding the material. He knew that the information was classified, and he knew he shouldn't be sharing it, but he did it anyway. See, that is different than the Hillary Clinton case. Now, I think the Hillary Clinton case has a number of problems anyway. So let me give you my final judgments, and this is a rare 5 final judgments in one. So did she do something wrong? The answer is, of course, yes, she did do something wrong. The FBI made that very clear. It was reckless. She knew she had a private server in her home. She knew she shouldn't have done that. It was against State Department regulations. There should be consequences for that. The question was, should there be criminal consequences? Did she break this specific crime? Well, if you're saying, well, you showed me the case a couple of days ago where someone who didn't have as much power as her was brought up on criminal charges. So conclusion number 2 is, yes, there are different rules for people in power. Trust me that if you're a low-level worker at the State Department and you set up a private server in your own house, and then you share classified information on that private server that could then get into the hands of our enemies. I don't know if you're going to be criminally indicted. You certainly might be, that's for sure. But you certainly will be fired, and you will never get security clearance again. Hillary Clinton might be the next president of the United States. Believe me, she's going to have security clearance. So yes, there are different rules, and if you're upset about that, you should be upset about it. Okay. On the other hand, final judgment number 3 is not indicting her is a defensible position. I'm not saying it's right, and I think there are those on the left and the right who think that there was enough evidence to indict her. But now you know all the evidence. We've done many shows on it. They now did giant congressional hearings on it. But the distinction between her and Petraeus is real, and a reasonable prosecutor and a reasonable investigator could have concluded, yes, it was wrong, but it was not criminal. It was not indictable. We could not have won a prosecution on that. It is a defensible position. Okay, no. Now, what is going to be the result? Well, that leads to final judgment number 4, which is no, you are never, ever, ever going to convict her. You couldn't even indict her. The FBI said no. Then Attorney General Loretta Lynch came out. She said no. So even if you're right that she should have been indicted, she's not going to be indicted. So that's a sad day for anyone who, wanted the opposite conclusion. But you didn't get that conclusion. I'm just being realistic and honest with you. And finally, final judgment number 5. Some people might let it go, but Republicans are never going to let this go. These are the guys who did 9 investigations on Benghazi and concluded in all 9 that nothing criminal had happened, and they really had almost nothing that they could point to that was actionable. Not almost, Nothing was actionable at all. They did 9 investigations anyway. These are the guys who voted 55 times to repeal Obamacare, full well knowing it's named after President Obama, who would certainly veto their actions even if it were to make it through Congress. So now they've got some wrongdoing that might be, involve ethics. It might involve regulations that were violated. So they're going to pounce on that. Look, they pounced already, and they're going to keep on pouncing. They'll do this 55 times over and over again. Oh my God, she shouldn't get security clearance. In fact, they're doing that today. They say her aides should all be stripped of security clearance immediately that were involved in this. And then she actually should not get briefings anymore from the intelligence community while she's running for president. It's too dangerous to give her briefings. So some people will let this go and some people won't. Their names are Republicans. But it is not an effort to actually get a result because you cannot get that result. It has been concluded. Nonetheless, they will pursue that. But I'm telling you right now that yes, something could have been done about the wrongdoing here. It was not done. So it's over, except for Republicans who will never let it go. And that's their final judgment.